Welcome to VNfiniti,
the podcast where we talk
and you listen.
We're your hosts, Ashley
and Tori.
Woohoo! Season finale.
Whoop, whoop. So we are going to start off with the verdict of 2020. So the first thing we're going to do is just give a quick 2020 recap of some important events. And in case you missed them, which you should have heard them, but just in case you missed them, we're just going to give you some brief facts. Starting in January, first of all, let's just discuss that this year has been the most odd, strange year.
Girl, I think we canceled 2020 like 3 times.
Like,
seriously canceled.
Wow, right? Okay.
Like, who would have thought that?
I don't know, because we came into this year with some serious visions, right?
Girl, 2020 vision.
Like, we had 2020 vision. We was going to change the world, right? And I think it was like
crystal,
a clear conscious. It was like a collective conscious thinking, like amongst many people. You know what I mean? That we had this vision that things were going to change. Yeah. 2020 was going to be
we all thought
monumental.
We was prophets. We all thought we were prophets and that God had given us this great vision of what this year was going to be. And God was like, ha, fooled you.
And truth was, though we had this prophet that this was going to be a year like none other.
Oh, it was a year like no other.
It came to be that it was a year like none other. Mm-hmm. Right?
We lived a full out Job year.
Definitely one that no one would have predicted.
Mm-hmm. Job.
Wow. So starting in January, after the U.S. drone strikes killed off Army General Qasem Soleimani on January the 3rd, we were left fearing for our lives, or they were left fearing for their lives, but we were left fearing for our lives.
We thought we was going to nuclear war.
Right, because we thought they were going to come for us, right?
How many of y'all built a bunker?
And oh my God, you remember we was watching and we was like, wow, these people spending all this money on these bunkers. Why all these CEOs of these major corporations leaving these jobs? Like, what is happening that we don't know about that come in 2020? So then came the dreaded impeachment of Donald Trump.
Dreaded? We been thought that was going to happen.
Yeah, but we was hoping he was going to be out. And he managed to
be in.
Okay.
All the way in.
So then the United Kingdom left the European Union, Brexit. Thousands of acres of land burnt in Australia. Millions of animals were slaughtered as a result. And then this is where 2020 really goes crazy.
This is where that left hook came in play.
This is when we wasn't ready for this. And that was this mysterious disease that was brewing in China. So that's the end of January. So now we're in February. And the first week of February, we saw Donald Trump. February. The first week of February, we saw that Donald Trump was acquitted of all his alleged crimes.
Say what?
And then also to mention in January, Kobe Bryant and his daughter both died in a helicopter accident, of which they memorialized them in February.
Yep.
Finally, the word coronavirus started spreading as fast as the actual disease did, right?
As it hit the U.S.
Because prior to then, it was on hush hush.
Yes, it was definitely on hush hush.
It was a weird situation.
Yeah, we still cannot confirm when the first case was hit.
Because weren't we quite certain that there was some folk walking around with some stuff that we couldn't,
all the way back to the previous Thanksgiving.
This isn't familiar. These symptoms that you have, they're quite odd, right?
Very odd.
Yeah. Okay. And so then in March, that's when the entire world went into the mass hysteria because some guy in China ate a bat. That's what we heard, right?
That's what we heard.
And then we learned that we were in the midst of a global pandemic. Okay.
So here we are come March and the whole world shut down.
Shut down.
Dum.
Shuts down.
I remember midway through the year, we're having a conversation about first quarter earnings, how the company is going. Everything has been looking kind of good. We were optimistic because we're still on this 2020 vision. We get the call that we're not going back to work on Monday morning.
Not going back to work. How dang odd was that?
It was very.
Of all the times that you wish this was going to occur, when it came, we was like, what is happening?
Work.
Because not long after that, children
were out of school. Nationwide. And I don't think anything like this has happened before except for polio.
Which we never experienced.
Yeah, which we never experienced at this point in time. And what's odd is because this was around the time that you and I started plotting for
and planning. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some crazy events, right?
Yeah.
So we going into April, right? We go into these massive shutdowns nationwide. worldwide.
No toilet paper.
No toilet paper, hand sanitizer, alcohol,
Lysol,
personal protective equipment,
wipes,
hospital beds, low, ventilators. All of a sudden, we had no idea that we were in a situation where we could, not have the things that we need
exactly
in one of the richest countries, and we're out here, scavenging as if these are the end of the days, because we thought it was the end of the days.
We really did. I mean, there was no water available to people. We had doctors and nurses that were begging for the simple things that we should have.
Masks. Personal protective equipment.
Masks.
Reusing masks.
Hospital grade masks. Not even
really?
the N95. Not even the N95
But we're just reusing regular sterile masks.
Sterile masks. Craziness.
So we move into April.
We have the mayor of D.C., among other black civilians and people, were protesting in social injustice. Why, you may say?
Yeah.
Is because even in the midst of a pandemic, we're continuing to see black men and women die every day.
Especially related to the pandemic, because the pandemic is affecting black communities at a higher rate,
yes,
because we're always in the disparity anyway. So now you have, COVID-19 that's affecting the black communities. You have the mayor of DC, among other mayors of other predominantly black cities, highlighting the racial injustices surrounding the virus. Because why are we dying at a higher rate, black and brown, than everybody else? Obviously, because of the inequality with healthcare and the lack of emergency facilities that are available to us in our communities.
And then if you add on top of that a layer of the fact that we're considered essential workers at higher rates because we are on the front line, whether we're nurses from that level, or we're janitorial staff, or someone working in a grocery store, or any of your everyday things that you may or may not.
First line of
defense, first line of protection, first line of, we're essential workers in all areas. Teachers, nurses, healthcare workers,
bus drivers. Oh my God, bus drivers passed away.
CNAs.
And they were up there trying to protest. This is a problem. How people getting on our buses without masks on. What's going on?
And then we have our vulnerable people that are being protected by CNAs, and we're in those positions. We're at Walmarts. We're having workers that are dying while they're still trying to show up to work in work situations of grocery stores. And then you have people that are in factories. They started slaughtering chickens. Do you remember the
because they couldn't get rid of them.
They were giving out chickens
and
produce because they were shutting down the factories, and because they were at all these epicenters of the coronavirus. And of course, you have people of color that are working in these factories. So as we're working through April, and we're getting through all of this stuff when it comes to social injustice as far as our health, we're also faced with a epidemic that people are just realizing is paramount to the survival of black people and black culture. And that is police brutality. Systemic racism that is threading through this country.
Sure.
So we have activists that are in the streets protesting in the midst of a lockdown, but we also have people that are counter-protesting because we are facing a lockdown.
Right, because that was a whole other thing. So you got these people who are counter-protesting, talking about their rights are being violated because businesses are having to close for a period of time, and schools are closed, and most of the governors are demanding that people wear masks when they're out in the community to prevent the spread of this novel disease. Not to just protect yourself, but to protect others, because the disease supposedly can be dormant in your system and you not show any symptoms, but it takes 7 to 14 days for you to recognize that you're sick.
Yeah.
So why is this a problem? Why do we have counter-protesters screaming about their civil rights?
We have privilege.
What
because
the
the
hell?
same counter-protesters showed up to government mansions and government official buildings with guns. With guns.
Circulating and threatening.
Yes, while people are dying in the streets because they are protesting the killing of black people.
And all we want to do is live.
By office.
But for that, for one, but for two, people in other communities are also dying from the virus. So like, what are we talking about? Okay, so along with that, cases of coronavirus continue to soar. They're not at record-breaking numbers just yet, but they're continuing to soar because you still have the president out here who is hosting presidential rallies where we are further brewing the virus and sending people home sick, obviously knowing that majority of his fan base are the elderly, who are loyal Republican Party members. So we move into May.
May we were optimistic.
Yes.
May we started coming off of some of the lockdowns. They started opening some things back up. So we were optimistic. Like here we spent several weeks in isolation fighting for toilet paper and owls. Okay. And here we are in May and we're like, oh, it's getting warm outside. We're going to be able to
go outside and have a summer.
Outside.
Oh my God. We look forward to summertime all this time because they told us
we could go out there.
That maybe in the summertime, that would be a better time for people to be able to get out and venture since we've been locked down for about 2 months anyway.
We had restaurants that started to open.
For the patio area.
The patio areas, outdoor activities were lifted, so we had more opportunities to do adventures and have activities granted to us. Even amongst that, the racial wounds of this country still decided to rear their ugly heads. We had everything from the videos becoming available of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd.
And Ahmaud Arbery.
All within a short period of time. And it was so heavy.
And it was some more that we haven't even mentioned in here. But these videos were...
one time.
Sure. And it was heavy.
Within 2 weeks of each other, back to back, throughout the month of May.
It was burdensome for the whole Black community. And for anybody else who could relate or, who wanted to sympathize with us, like it was major. It was so heavy.
And I remember personally when it came to the Ahmaud Arbery case, the fact that we were on lockdown, gyms were closed. I'm an advocate person that works out. Most people that know me know that I'm in the gym at least 5 days a week. And during this time, during the pandemic with gyms closing, we're outdoors. We're seeking ways that we can exercise because on top of all the other shortages, I can attest to the fact that you could not find a heavy weight for miles.
There were no weights.
No weights.
The gyms are closed and now people can't work out.
Yes, now people can't work out. So here's this Black man running, working out, trying to keep his body in shape because we know that our rates of mortality amongst this virus and amongst other health issues in the Black community is high. So a Black man trying to do his due diligence for his body and his mind and his soul, because we know working out can be therapeutic, he is killed in broad daylight. And not just killed, but chased down by a group. Not one white person, but three white men chasing him down in broad daylight.
In 2020.
In 2020.
And murdered him in the streets.
It was almost as if it was very similar and symbolic to the mass mobs that used to chase Black men down and lynch them in the streets in broad daylight.
Yeah, and thought they could get away with it.
And thought that they could get away with it. Thought that they could get away with it so
because
much so
he
that
had
they
a history.
Called the prosecutor as an ex-police officer, called the prosecutor and coached their way through this. But one of those men got a conscience and he decided to release video. Does that let him off the hook?
Nope.
Hell to the no. Because his ass is sitting up there facing capital murder as well.
And the only reason he did it was because he was getting death threats and he wanted some protection. And he found out that, no, sir, you get no protection for the partaking in the conspiracy of murdering someone.
A Black man.
So let's start with that.
So that really hit me home during this time. It really hit home because, like I said, I was outside. I was running in neighborhoods. There was a push to celebrate Ahmaud Arbery's life. Mm-hmm. So we did the Ahmaud Arbery run, which was a 4-mile run.
Mm-hmm. 8.46 minutes.
46 minutes, which
the length of time that
was the George Floyd.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It was 2 point
something miles.
Because it was
45 miles or something like that?
I believe it was.
It was a date. 2.13 or something like that.
2.13.
But you're right. Yeah, it was the date of which he was
the date of which he was murdered. But again, those videos did not show up until May. So we're hit with that. Right on the heels of that, we're hit with Breonna Taylor, who was murdered in her home by police that later said that they were at the wrong address, who then came back and said that they were at the right address, but she was involved in a conspiracy to traffic drugs, who later came back and also changed her story again. So we're hit with this, and then
Lies.
we have
George
Floyd, which I think was the heaviest of all, because we actually watched the last breath of this man leave his body as he was crying for his mother, a grown 42, I think he was 42 years old, male. He may have been older.
With his own children.
With his own children, crying out for his mom and watching his last breath leave his body. So all of this wrapped up into that
Racial injustice.
We just got to an impasse amongst each other, like where we just was like, we have to have a voice.
Right.
We have to have some way of expressing ourselves, leaving something behind, and putting our ideas of VNfiniti kind of out there past just paper.
Yeah.
So we launched our first episode.
Yes, we did. Our first episode, values.
Yes. Mama knows best.
Mama knows best. And so we recorded our first episode featuring Ashley's mom.
Yeah.
Who was here to speak with me, Tori, as a young mom. And she dropped some jewels on me about raising girls.
Yeah.
Very much beneficial. Reminding me that we have to have grace when we are raising our daughters, allowing them to make mistakes and allowing them to assert themselves, but still reminding them of our roles, mommy and daughter, and that we have to have boundaries and discipline.
Yes.
So those were very, very important jewels that.
And I think what I gained from our first episode too was the fact that you also had your lovely daughter, Addison, as a guest speaker on our first episode.
Yes.
And I thought it was awesome seeing how, even at a young age, her seeing the value of having such a great mom and what it can be to have you there supporting her, and then also having my mom on the show to show how she was supporting me.
Yeah, so and you're an adult now.
And I'm an adult now.
It shows the importance of us having bridging this relationship, having open dialogue, but also reminding us of our roles. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So out of all of the heaviness of the month of May, between the clashes between the police and the protesters, and seeing all of this while the virus is getting at its optimum level, well, we thought it was the optimal level. I think it was great to see some sunlight in that
we were able to start our podcast. Absolutely. So then, still within the month of May, you had the U.S. government along with other countries who thought that they were getting control of the virus. They were trying to reopen because it becomes economic devastation.
Yeah, because we're locked down, putting a strain on our GDP. We're having
a lot of businesses are closing.
Yeah.
A lot of unemployment rates are high.
Yeah.
Homeless rates are becoming high because people are being evicted.
Right. So they put some things in place.
And people are being evicted because some of these people were frontline nurses that people didn't want
in their homes.
And then aside from that, it was just other regular frontline workers who were, some of them were frontline nurses.
Yes.
But on the other hand, when you had frontline workers who were also losing their jobs because businesses were closing, but they couldn't pay their rent or their mortgage.
You have restaurants that are closed, they couldn't pay their rent or mortgage. You have people that are sick and don't have sick pay. And don't have the ability to take off from that. And now they're unable to work.
Yeah.
So they're not able to pay their bills. So the government passed a couple of different things in May and in June.
Rent protection. Mortgage protection. Car insurance protection.
Yes. Even
stimulus checks.
Yeah. We all enjoyed those.
Student loan
stimulus
forbearances and stuff.
Yeah. And then we also had unemployment boost that started during that time, the month of May. We also had some things put in place to where if you didn't have health care, like your employer, like some extensions of FMLA, some extensions of some of our FSA.
Due to having to be out.
Or caring
for
due to our
someone.
Kids having to be out too. So
dependent care. Because children are home.
Yeah.
Children are still home.
Yes.
We're in May and children are still home. It's about time for us to get out of school.
Yeah.
Sure, to start our summer.
Yeah.
because we thought we was going to have that boom in summer, right?
Right.
So we move into June, and here you. Oh wait, but you know what? Before we finished May, we forgot about Kim Jong-un.
Oh yeah. Somehow we said that he was died.
And
he did.
And he was
died.
definitely alive.
He died. He did. It was still alive. He just moved missing for a time.
And I need to check up on that, because what I feel like happened was that he got COVID, and then he came back and started rethinking some things, and he's become more generous. But I need to get that for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not certain.
I'm with you on that one.
So we move into June, and June comes in, and hell breaks loose. We have mass civil rights protests that broke out around the world in solidarity for the unjust racial discrimination and murders of black people at the hands of the
Police.
U.S. corrupt justice system.
And it exposed people, when we say across the world, it exposed a lot of things, because we were all on one accord, all out of the strength of George Floyd. So like this George Floyd fueled so much worldwide. We had protests in Africa, protests in Brazil, protests in Europe.
London. Everywhere.
It was just everywhere. People were protesting racial, not just social, racial
injustice. Yep.
And systemic racism that was like the building blocks of this country.
And I know we, for the lack of time, let me just mention, I know that, we have seen these movements before, and like I said, we've seen them in the past days history, where we have these giants in civil rights justice that have always spoken for us, and they've gotten so much done over time. We had this huge movement where it seemed like everyone was on board with Black Lives Matter. This was a thing. Yet and still, as time progresses, I know a lot of corporations came out and gave money. There was some restructuring of the NFL, some restructuring of some police departments and some police unions, but it just wasn't enough to encompass and to undo or remedy the systematic racism that we have going on worldwide. Okay, not just nationwide, but worldwide. Definitely worth mentioning. We had the notorious hacking faction of Anonymous, as well as K-pop stans who booked seats to Trump's rally, because he said like his rally is going to be huge. It's going to be huge. It's going to be huge. It's going to be the largest
like
crowd. Yeah, I have the largest crowd, so it's going to be huge. And this was a rally that was supposed to take place in Jacksonville, Florida.
That was moved to...
It was supposed to take place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, let's just... Come on.
They ended up taking it back to Tulsa, Oklahoma later in the year.
So let's just talk about the ignorance of that.
He booked the Tulsa, Oklahoma on Juneteenth. Juneteenth.
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Tulsa,
and
Oklahoma.
Completely said he had no idea of the significance of Tulsa, Oklahoma and Juneteenth.
Really?
Really.
The richest, most prominent African-American community, Black Wall Street, in the early 1900s, off of the brink of slavery. You mean to tell me he didn't know the significance of Juneteenth in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Nope.
Oh, that's nuts.
Nope.
Okay, so here we go. So that's why you had the K-pop stans who booked all of these seats, some hundreds of seats or thousands of seats at this rally, and Trump thought all these people were going to show up, and he obviously got his feelings hurt. Mm-hmm. Thanks, K-pop stans. So as a result, you had a whole bunch of empty seats, and his feelings were hurt. Puerto Rico was on the brink of multiple earthquakes. Along with that, you had the Karens and the Kens.
Along with that, the Karens and the Kens.
These Karens and Kens, we didn't even know what these Karens and Kens were until we had to label them. They finally started cutting the fool because they couldn't suppress their racism when they were, all these protests. They thought that black people were going to gain privilege.
And this is me being the devil's advocate, as I tend to be often on this show. But it's a very stressful time for the Karens and Kens. They've been locked up in the house against their will and against freedom.
And their civil rights were violated.
So how dare the social injustice put inconvenience on anything that I have going on, including being in line and not wanting to wait and to cut in front of you, And then to turn around and call you every N-word in the book.
Every word. I mean, but it wasn't just cutting in line. It was black people who were bird watching, black people who were barbecuing, black people who were gardening, black people who were selling water.
You name it.
Yeah, you name it, right? You know, moving into new neighborhoods. They were trying to convince them, you're not supposed to be here. This can't be your house.
Oh,
Airbnb. I mean, like all kinds of crazy stuff. You had
And
these
why don't
Karens.
you just act white?
And these
If
kids
you're going to be here, just act white.
rearing their heads. But fortunately
Or
enough,
walking past your house and rendering your guns.
okay. So fortunately enough, these Karens and Kens were being called out on their shit. There are social media pages for this now where you can go and look up these Karens and Kens who have been calling the police on black people.
So much so
For the dumbest
that there
things.
are now laws, at least 5 states since the start of this has created this law that protects people from these Karens and Kens.
That was a thing.
And as we said before, we're lifting off of lockdown now. We're exploring and enjoying this hot summer weather. But
Yeah,
then we
and
have health experts telling us, hey, simmer down.
You need to simmer down. But we couldn't because so many people were complaining about their rights being violated because they couldn't go to the bars and the clubs. We came up off of some of the curfews and opened some things back up, I would say too soon. But hey, we shall see. That's yet to be determined.
Damn,
We
all that
did
shit
not
happened in
record a podcast.
Actually, we did.
No, yes, we did. We recorded 2 podcasts
So,
in
yeah,
June.
June rolls around, and at the beginning of June, we wanted to give homage to the fact that we have these Karens and Kens, but they're no match for us Vixen when it comes to the angry black woman and how we have fueled this country past so many obstacles and has used the same strength that they're standing on
Right now.
throughout this systemic racial building blocks, stumbling blocks, whatever you want to call it when it comes to this country. Now we're here.
Yeah.
And we're embracing this.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
we're angry. Stay angry.
We are.
Black women.
Because it was those black women who allow for this change. We are monumental in shaking and baking and making things move.
But we didn't want to get too caught up in just the political aspect of the environment.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of give you a little bit of our thought process when it comes to some of the everyday crap that we deal with. Whether it's amongst friends talking about their new boo
Their
things
situations.
or their new situations, or if it was from everyday experiences. So we rolled out the villain or vixen. Why do good girls like bad guys?
Okay. We got some pretty good feedback about it.
Yeah, we did. Apparently, we didn't go deep enough because guys feel that we have a little more to explain when it comes to us liking bad guys and why the good guys get no play. So we may have to circle back on that one, definitely.
In
see
2021.
in 2021, and see what's up with the fellas on what they think when it comes to us good girls liking bad guys.
Okay. We move into July, and our beloved Senator John Lewis,
Yeah.
a martyr of civil rights for blacks, passed away. In addition to this, polls find that Asians and black Americans are reporting heightened discrimination amid the coronavirus outbreak, specifically because the president titled it
The Chinese virus.
The Chinese flu, directly attaching it to all of the Asian American population in the States. So you can understand how that can create some problems.
And then on top of that, because of disparities in the healthcare system when it comes to black Americans and Africans worldwide, we were seeing that people of color were being discriminated against amongst the black American and black African nations in other countries were being discriminated against for the coronavirus, which was amongst me crazy because we were finding that Africans were finding themselves out on the streets in Asian American or Asian countries. So
How that happened? Because it didn't originate. Okay,
Girl.
all right.
Yeah.
Moving on. So it was also reported that Russia was up to no good. First, they were accused.
surprised?
First, they were accused of putting bounties on U.S. troops, and then the Brits also found records that they were paying extremist groups to kill British troops too. What the hell? Trump and his bestie Elon Musk ended up sending 2 lucky guys into space, which we found out later. And then Kanye West, we mentioned him earlier in one of our podcasts. So he attended his first ever rally to endorse himself as president.
And who would have thought 2020 could get weirder than this?
What? But he ended up having a major mental health breakdown and admitted he was going to kill his own daughter. After that, he went off ranting and raving on Twitter, about his wife must have cheated on him.
Shia LaBeouf.
Okay.
Sheila.
Yeah. Anyway, poor Kanye.
Poor Kanye. Amongst that, by this time, we had enough with 2020 and had enough with the cancel culture because we had canceled Kanye.
We had to. He had to go.
That's
what are we going to do?
Yeah.
He canceled us first.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
Okay.
So we canceled the culture in our podcast Void, as well as canceled 2020.
We canceled 2020 in July, girl.
In July.
That was enough. That was enough. We had determined as we had determined in July. You know what? We can stop right here. Let's just stop right here because it can't. What else? What else is going to happen? But then we found out, unfortunately,
we can't cancel a whole year.
You can't because August came. Well, we thought we was canceling it, but it didn't matter. So the year moves on.
Yeah, it kept going.
So August comes, and we have a 5.1 magnitude earthquake that strikes North Carolina and sends aftershocks throughout the East Coast.
So let me get this straight. We had fires in Australia.
Fires. And California. Fires.
I think we had some locusts somewhere up in there, too.
Perhaps.
In Africa somewhere. And now we got damn earthquakes.
In North Carolina.
Girl.
Not just earthquakes, but earthquakes in North Carolina. Because earthquakes are quite common on the West Coast.
Yeah.
But they're not common in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So,
and this one was felt all the way to D.C.
This is what I'm saying. It was a 5.1 magnitude. So it was pretty significant. So COVID overwhelmingly strikes counties with the most black businesses, of course. Some good news or some hope.
Yes.
Some good hope.
Out of all of this.
Great black hope.
Yes. One of our angry black women came through with the win.
Hello. Here we go. We have Miss Kamala Harris as the black woman who secured the vice presidential spot on the 2020 Democratic ticket. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop. Right around that time where Kanye flops among black voters. That was perfect.
It was so hard to watch.
Oh, my goodness. What are we doing? Facebook bans racist depiction of black people and Jews.
Oh, wow. They had to actually ban
They had to because it wasn't stated.
Oh, I remember what happened.
Go ahead.
Trump had a campaign about that. And then they finally banned it. Okay, move on.
So that's August. So now we move into September.
Wait, but in August,
yes.
But amongst all of this, we wanted to take back some of our ownership. Yeah, that's right. We had our most viewed.
Off the brink of our great black hope, Miss Kamala Harris.
Yes. We wanted to take back some of our power.
Angry black women.
Yeah.
We figured that this would be a time to go ahead and
introduce y'all
to Hot Pocket Coochie Talk. Okay.
Girl.
So Hot Pocket Coochie Talk, VNfiniti. The main thing that we wanted to express with this Hot Pocket Coochie Talk is that we are in control of our own bodies.
Yep.
Our own sensuality, our own sexuality,
yes,
our own goddessness,
yes,
and that we're not going.
Girl, that's all sexy.
And we're not going to be suppressed or oppressed by any man, woman, old folk,
stereotypes,
systems that try to steal our rights. You know, so.
And we had an amazing guest.
So much fun.
It was so much fun.
It was.
An amazing guest who was very open and willing to share her experiences, her talks, even down to her own personal struggles with her addiction. Yes.
Sweet Pea. Oh, na-na. Thanks, oh, na-na.
Yes, for joining us in August for our Hot Pocket Coochie Talk.
Hot Pocket Coochie Talk. Hot Pocket Coochie Talk.
Girl, it broke some records.
Not odd, right? It did break records, okay? So us being so us being a rather young podcast, just starting out, Hot Pocket Coochie Talk was pretty popular.
Yeah, it was.
So it just let us know what our viewers
we watching y'all just like y'all watching us.
Okay. So that was in August.
And rolling up in September, we have, guess what? It is our time to shine, baby. Virgo season.
Yes. And you know, nobody celebrates like the Virgos. Or even recognize, because for some reason, Virgos are just, it's a common conversation.
Yeah, you can't get enough.
You can't.
We're addictive.
We are. Now, some sad news in September is we lost RBG. who was also a champion of women's rights and change.
It's like the blows just kept
It's crazy.
hitting, like
Yeah.
month after month.
Yeah,
They just kept
it's a roller
coming.
coaster. We couldn't enjoy the good because
couldn't.
the bad was so much. You know, losing Senator Lewis and then turning around and losing RBG. Both are
And
champions for, you know.
Not just champions for change. And I have to go back to August for a second. Because right on the heels, or right prior to our RBG, we lost our black hero. We lost Chadwick Boseman.
Oh my God, yeah.
And that was like a hit and it was a blow.
That
But
was
before we could even mourn him
something.
completely, we lost RGB.
It was RBG. Yeah.
RBG.
It was something that we definitely were not prepared for. It was like a shock among all shocks to the celebrity community as well as the general population. Like, we were shocked. Like, his fan base were like, what? Like, you took
And the fact
Black
that
Panther?
Yes.
Who, what? You took out Black
2020?
Panther? We just got him last year.
Yeah,
Year
2020.
before
Come on.
last.
Come on now.
Come on, dude.
I mean, and,
What?
then we tried to celebrate as best we could Virgo
crazy.
season throughout the August set up, and then we have RBG that rolled up in here and rolled
That
up
we-
into the country, changed it a lot.
Yeah.
And she was holding on for dear life.
She was. She said she was.
She was like,
She
I'm
said,
trying to
please.
stay here till y'all get this mofo
Until we get a new president, please. I'm trying. Can't work with me. I done beat cancer 3, 4, 7 times.
Yes.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph, the coronavirus ain't even took me out yet. Can you please?
And we couldn't. And we didn't.
Child, we tried.
We tried.
God
We tried
bless
our
her.
hardest.
Bless her.
We
Bless her.
tried our hardest. And then amongst that scandal of all things, we had the scandal of all scandals when it comes to people in these divorces. So y'all just really don't like each other being stuck in the house. We had celebrities getting divorced left and right, and they were getting kicked out left and right. But they was also having a kick out left and right, which brought us to Vault.
Cash out.
Cash Out, where we discussed everybody from Cam Newton to we didn't even get a touch on Dr. Dre.
Who getting
and
paid?
all his stuff.
Who getting
and all
paid?
his mess.
And who yeah. So we talked about who was walking away
With some cash,
yeah,
some dough.
Absolutely. And not just dough, that and any other perks that because, you know, some of them had children.
Yeah.
Just whatever, right? So that was our cash out.
Yep, Cash Out episode dropped in September. We explored all the avenues that you could cash out when it came to your relationship. So
Hey.
if COVID is not working out for you, go check that out so you can see what kind of.
Because COVID holding folk hostage. It's
Yes.
making it hard for people
I love you.
to be amongst their family members and loved
I
ones.
love you, but I don't like your ass.
Listen, not up in this coronavirus season when I can't go to school or work or play golf or go to the gym or any of these other leisure outlets that I would have had to give me a break from you.
Girl, you better be glad you ain't got no black eye. So as we continue to roll through the year in October.
Okay, so we found out in October that Kim Jong-un popped back up on the scene. We found out that he actually was affected by the coronavirus himself. So he went missing. And then when he popped back up on the scene, we found out that he was dealing with coronavirus earlier in the year. And when he popped back up on the scene, he gave this tearful
He was sorry.
speech. Yes. He delivered this tearful apology to the North Koreans about his failure to guide them through tumultuous times in addition to the coronavirus. We were all in awe because we didn't think that Kim Jong-un was ever remorseful about anything. So that was different. Wonder if that was a result of his experience with the coronavirus. I don't know. Along with that, there was a plot to kidnap
Oh.
Michigan's governor,
All these people and they freedom fighting to get out the doggone house.
to overthrow the government because these folk of privilege were complaining about their civil rights being violated because they had to wear masks. So they were outside. First, they were outside the Michigan Capitol
building.
Yep, with firearms.
Talking about give us free.
Yep. And then finally, ultimately, it led up to some 13 or so individuals who were a part of some domestic terrorist group who decided they were going to kidnap and kill the mayor and overtake the Michigan government. Craziness, craziness, craziness.
Craziness. So you have Kim Jong-un who resurfaces, governor gets kidnapped, and then you have Vladimir Putin, who decides in some cases that he's not going to be he's going to step down.
He's ready to step down. With concern of some
health concerns.
Some health concerns, right. So it's been reported, although there are some indiscrepancies about it, but it's been reported that he does plan on stepping down next year as a result of his health.
So now we have two of Trump buddies just like doing 180s.
Going through some stuff, girl. It takes life for folk to be like, you know what? Maybe life is too short for me to be acting a fool like this.
And if that wasn't enough, we're gearing up for election 2020.
In November.
And my phone will not stop buzzing. You have calls coming through, text messages coming through. They're harassing us.
What is going on, girl?
And there's so much misinformation that we came through with a little bit of our own as well. Mm-hmm. So we have our vote. Mm-hmm. There's more reasons than none. Mm-hmm. Where we could try to drop some gems on the fact that we do need to make sure that when we're voting and we're putting our foot forward for our community, whether it's the social injustice that we've been seeing throughout the whole year, or whether it's issues economics
or social issues, educational issues,
all of these
just
things,
the local things.
Yeah, that affect us and how
it's constantly overlooked because we quickly go to the general and the primary elections that affect the state and the federal, right. But we don't address issues, or we don't show up for our local elections to address the issues that affect us most within our communities. Yep. Because I think there's a disconnect in terms of like who has the power to change these things that we are affected by.
And I think that's one thing that we witnessed in this last election as well. So we have all of the stuff that went on with our local elections, which I think people started to get it, like the sheriffs, the judges, the prosecutors. These are the people that are directly affecting us. And we saw that locally when it came to Breonna Taylor, when it came to George Floyd, when it came to all of these different things, even down to the guy who got killed out in, I think it was Arizona, by one of the local sheriffs there during a protest. So we get all of these things where we're here at election time and we're having to make these decisions, and we're trying to give you a voice and information that allows your voice to be heard through voting, because there's more reasons than none to sit it out. Because a lot of people were talking about sitting out the election,
like we did the last time. That's how we got Trump. Don't fall for that. Don't fall for all these plots that they are setting up for us. They're setting up booby traps, and we take it. Like all this effort that Trump put in, he put more money into campaigning to get black voters than he has put into ways to change the issues that are affecting us most. Put money into that. Don't put money into your campaign to get us. Put money into the reform that we need.
As we roll into November, first portion of the month is election time. Here we are, 2020 elections, and this shit lasts forever.
Yeah.
We didn't know. We didn't have a president for 2021.
What is the deal?
For like a whole week. We were still trying to figure it out. I mean, others were trying to figure it out, but...
And even at this point, there's some lies, there's some conspiracy, there's some propaganda, there are all these tactics to undermine what was considered the most secure election in America's history.
Yeah.
Because off the brink of the last election, they hired a new election oversight committee to go back and find out all of the issues that were affecting us from the last election so that we could have a more secure election. And what your boy do?
Girl, he fired him.
He fired him.
After he said that Trump lost.
This was the most secure election in modern history. And so you're like, oh, that's a lie. And he fired him. Wait, not to his face, not with a letter.
Over Twitter.
He fired him on Twitter.
Yep.
Yes, 2020 brings about your termination on Twitter for the American people to find out before you do. How the hell that work?
Well, what we do know is Twitter also announced that after Trump leaves office, he will no longer be
have access to
all of the privileges that he got, being that he was
POTUS.
Yeah.
So, in addition to that, what's that?
that we have a different president.
Praise
Biden
God.
Harris won.
Yes, so we have a Biden-Harris win, although we are still going through
Confirmation and conceding.
and certifications and
recounts.
legal battles and everything else in different states. But at the end of the day, Biden has the most popular vote
And electoral
college vote.
Yep.
So let's go ahead on and move on. Please, Jesus, let us make it to 2021 with a new president and new vice president. Miss Kamala Harris, Miss Mamala Harris, Mamala of the nation.
Making history.
Thank you, Jesus.
Making history.
Though Trump refuses to concede, moving right along. Unfortunately, now this is
in more ways than none, we are making history this election.
we are
So we have the first black woman.
vice presidential candidate.
Yes, the first
Vice president elect.
Yes, elect. We have the first black woman of immigrants as the vice president elect. We have the first woman elect vice president. What else can we add to
So
this?
we said woman.
Yep,
We said of immigrants. We said
Said-
black. Yeah. So yeah, good stuff, right?
And then we round out the end towards. So Thanksgiving, we're coming up on Family Matters, and then we have some more unfortunate news between.
We learned that Bobby Brown's son,
passed away.
Bobby
recently.
Brown Jr., passed away at age 28. I think we might still be waiting on the cause of death.
But it seemed like it may be possibly COVID related.
Yeah, so we just have this family.
To me, they
Like
remind me of the Kennedys.
The Kennedys, right?
Like,
it's just a plague
it's just
family
doomed.
where they just keep losing people, and it's so very unfortunate.
But out of November, we can bring a little bit of light.
Praise them.
We had a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reunion
Yes, we
that had
did.
both Aunt Vibs.
Both Aunt Vibs. Both Aunt Vibs was present. Good stuff.
Good stuff. So as we enter the last month of the year, prior to us entering the last month of the year, we also dropped 2 podcasts this month.
We had Veer
We had Veer.
and we had Volume
We had Volume.
with 2 guest hosts.
Yes.
All right.
And I believe actually Volume was dropped in October. So amongst all of the election chaos,
Yeah.
we wanted to bring forth ways that you can create boundaries.
Yes.
You can do a little bit of self-care.
Yeah.
As well as purging, because we need that.
We have to. Daily.
It's been heavy. 2020 has been a heavy year.
And I think when people think about purging, which we covered in Volume, when people think about purging, we think about the material things that bog us down. But we have to remember that there are, there's a lot of mental and emotional things that bog us down, especially when we have others who rely on us and they drop their stuff off on us, and then we're stuck with their stuff and our stuff, because we want to be there for people, but sometimes people have to think about too how that affects the people we're dumping on. So Volume definitely covered how to establish boundaries and how to purge.
And as we move forward through November, we wanted to make sure that we also talked about the growth that we have gained. If there has been anything this year has taught us, it is definitely how to veer.
How to veer.
Yes. Take that left, that right, and then that U-turn at any direction, at any point in time, at any given moment, we need to veer.
Yeah.
This has been something where things have been thrown at us, and with that, you grow. Like the growth that comes out of immediate change, growth. Sometimes we don't look at it as being an optional thing, but it is.
It is.
It's optional. Change, however, is inevitable.
Is inevitable.
So you're going to either rise to the occasion when those obstacles are thrown at you, left or right, or you're going to stay at a standstill like our current president is after the election and refusing to concede. So he hasn't grown this whole year. He hasn't.
4 years.
Like
76
how old is
years.
76 years. Okay, he hasn't grown. He hasn't shown that growth.
Clearly means that there is a developmental disability there. Like there is there was a stage interrupted in his development, and it was around his emotional intelligence, actually, as his niece reported, that his father was just so emotionally
disconnected. I can see that.
Yeah, and his mom was too.
Yeah,
like his father was a monster, and his mom was just like, whatever happens, happens. Yeah. Let the boy raise himself. I don't care. And then he ends up president.
Yeah.
Jesus, there needs to be something put in place.
I used to think that there had to be a test to take.
Anytime Kanye can jump on the ballot. The verdict for 2020.
Yeah. I I say it is guilty of teaching us how to change and grow.
It is certainly guilty of teaching us how to change. This is the thing. We came in with the hopes of growing and changing and evolving. We came in with visions.
We did.
Right? And we've been successful.
I think 2020 vision has been the perfect theme for this year. So we started off thinking it meant one thing, and now in a true divine way,
definitely a divine way,
a whole new perspective on what 2020 vision is.
Right, with the exception of the loss.
Yes.
Right, because we've had some major loss on the back of COVID-19.
Yes.
It's been one of the strangest things that we have ever seen in our lifetime. We've never known for something to come and take so many people away from us and to disrupt so many lives. And I think that is major.
I think it is too.
When we come into like wrapping up our verdict for 2020, how none of us were prepared for something so outrageous.
No, I don't. I believe that the amount of loss
trauma
that we have experienced this year is definitely something that we will never be able to get over in our lifetime.
Sure.
I'm sure that there will be other things that people will experience past our years on this earth. But I really do feel that despite the heaviness of the year, despite the loss, the coming out of this with a true verdict of how we are as people, as a community, and as a society is what we should reflect on as we're reaching the end of 2020.
Sure. And with that said, to take away is it's important for us to reflect on what we have and who we have while we can, because this was certainly something that we could not have prepared for in a million years. Never would have thought it was coming. And so in addition, if you don't mind, Springs, I'm going to just like recap my own 2020 visions. When I came into the year, I had a 20 Twexit. Those affirmations was 1, trust the vision that God is giving me.
Hey.
2, passion, power, purpose.
Hey.
3, money comes easily and frequently. 4, what you seek is seeking you. 5, your thoughts become your life. 6, know your worth. 7, be in the moment. 8, it's not about perfection, it's about progression.
Get it?
And 9, so live the life you want.
And you want to know what's crazy about all of your affirmations? I feel like we've touched on them in each one of our episodes.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's so mirror image.
My 20 Twexit.
Yeah.
That's what I named it, coming off of 2019.
Boop, boop.
Hello. That was a high five.
That was a high five. So as we wrap up, I would like to say that although 2020 has been guilty of being one of the harshest years that I would say most people have experienced, and it's been a rough year for me as well, with personal loss as well. I think overall, from a verdict of where we are personally, I think that we can give it a little bit of grace.
We don't have a choice.
We don't.
Girl, we want this thing to evolve.
And we
and we want to change paths.
We made it.
Heck, we did make it, right?
Yeah.
It's November 22nd, but we made it.
So, although the verdict isn't out in my book,
yeah.
How about yours?
Not quite.
Not quite out?
I need to finish it all. I need to see it all the way through.
Oh, you got to see December 31st?
I got to.
You got to ring that bell?
Yeah.
Okay. How about you out there?
Let us know.
Let us know.
How you feel about your 2020 wrap up.
And what's the verdict? Thank you for listening and tuning into the podcast where we talk.
And you listen.
And I hope you enjoyed season 1. And if you would like, you can always recap our episodes here on our platform, which is YouTube.
Like and subscribe.
Yep.
And we will see you all next year for our new season of VNfiniti 2021.
Don't forget.
Like and subscribe.